Hello, how's it going? Can you hear me okay? I've got a new setup today. How's it going, equipment manager? Awesome, you can hear me perfectly. Like the layout? Thank you. Glad everybody can hear me. Where is this studio? What do you mean, where do I live? This is just in my house. It's an extra bedroom. But yeah, I'm glad everything's working. Yeah, thanks. Glad you guys liked or one person liked the new overlay. Let me know how it looks, if you're if you're on a phone or if you're on a computer, how it looks as far as that's concerned. Sorry if you can hear my dog, which I'm sure you can. Yeah, I'm definitely not giving away my address, but let's see here. Yeah, I'm definitely not giving you my address. Then everyone would know where all of the brass instruments are. My day was pretty good. Taught a bunch of lessons. Social security number. 7. Just like in, what is it? Little Rascals, they try to open up a bank account, and I think they ask them for their social security number. I think they just say 7. I mean, it could happen. I definitely don't want to encourage people stealing instruments. Let's see here. Shoe size. Is this because I put feel free to ask a question? Maybe I need to be more specific. These overlays can change at any time. Just trying to help out and answer questions, but okay, shirt size. I don't exactly know my shirt size. I've lost some weight recently, and I've just been wearing what I have. But it probably doesn't fit me quite properly. But I generally wear tall sizes, which that's also not something that can be easily found. When did I start playing youth? So I started playing baritone when I was in 4th grade. That was actually my first brass instrument. So my kind of euphonium baritone story, is, it goes back and forth. I started out, that was my only instrument for about 2 years. And I still, that baritone that's, my parents bought on eBay, that's for like $150 or something, is still at their house. It is okay. It's not great. Barely functions, but it was fine to start out on. And then when I got to 6th grade, I switched to tuba. And it really wasn't until maybe sophomore or junior in high school where I started playing euphonium again. And even then, it wasn't very often. But I did like solo and ensemble on euphonium a little bit, and I did, I did like all region. I didn't do all state on it, but one year I auditioned on all state on euphonium, tuba, and trombone. But yeah, so it's kind of weird and then I didn't have one. I was just playing the high schools, like the 3rd best one that I could get a hold of, and so then it wasn't really until, wasn't until after undergrad that I bought this instrument. So really all of undergrad I didn't play euphonium. And there wasn't really a reason to, because at the University of North Texas, basically everyone, everyone there is better at euphonium than me. So especially at that time as an undergrad. So I didn't want to, there was no need. It's oversaturated as it is. Wonder if the stream is okay. All of a sudden, 0 viewers out of nowhere. Huh. Oh, still here. Okay, maybe it just, I don't know, the overlay is different now, and it made it seem like there was no one here for a second, so. Glad at least we've got equipment manager. How do you get a smoother vibrato? I'm curious exactly, I'm not 100% sure I know what you mean by smoother in regards to vibrato. But I really just try to have it be a nice little coloration, and it maybe also be necessary to ask what kind of vibrato are you using. I'm using a jaw vibrato, which I would say is the most common vibrato in the United States at least. But yeah, I just try to, it's a slight pitch manipulation. Hopefully that helps you. If you have more, I can probably answer it better if you give me slightly clearer clues to what you're interested in understanding. Would love to hear you talk about mouthpiece selection for tuba and thoughts on C versus B flat for someone who will only own one instrument. Yeah, both great questions. I think in the land of tuba mouthpieces, in general, I encourage my students to try something pretty standard, and I try to keep them on something standard for a long time, even if they're college students. I like just the regular Helleberg. Con Helleberg is a great mouthpiece. The mouthpiece that I play and that I recommend from Dennis Wick is a 2XL or a 2L. Both of those are kind of, I think, pretty good starting places for mouthpieces. At the end of the day, mouthpieces are so personal that, to me, like the way I test a mouthpiece is, I'll play it for a day or so, And sometimes it'll just be a quick, like, I hate this, I don't want this, and that's the end of the discussion. It can happen that way. Sometimes it's, I like this, I think, and then I end up going to like a hall and playing, and I generally try to have 2 or 3 friends that I trust their ear. I, come out and listen to me play and see how that goes. So, I think mouthpiece selection it's a pretty, personal thing, but it takes some time to kind of even just figure out how you go about finding a mouthpiece. But in general, I would just encourage people to plan something simple for a while to kind of get things going. And, we talk about mouthpieces so much because they're so, it's such a hot topic thing, and I almost, feel guilty about, making a video about mouthpieces because I don't think mouthpieces are everything, and I tried to convey that in the video, but it probably got lost in the, here are a bunch of mouthpieces. At the end of the day, I don't play, 30 mouthpieces all the time, and, I don't go through and say, oh, I can't play this high note, let me grab this mouthpiece. Especially for like this tube, I really play one, maybe another mouthpiece. But that's kind of how I go about it. But as far as thoughts on B flat versus C, if you're only going to own one, I would make a strong case for C, just because, if you only have one tuba, C is relatively, still on the lower side, but it's in the middle. And I think it being in the middle makes it a good choice because it may only be a step, but I think that it's just a little bit easier to play some stuff that's higher, and it's just a little bit more agile than a B flat tuba. There are people who can play anything on a B flat tuba. I've heard some German tuba players who play B flat, and it's just astounding. So it's not really that you can't do anything on one or the other, but there is a little bit of a reality to what instrument you're playing on does help or can help you a little bit. The way that I think about it is, a bad craftsman blames their tools. And that's one thing I don't want to be a part of. So, I practice my high excerpts on C tuba. I practice Ride of the Valkyries on F tuba. It's not just about being able to do it on one, because at the end of the day, there are situations where I only have one. What happens when you're playing with an orchestra and you're playing a concert, and then they're like, hey, we're going to add this, and you brought one tuba for everything, and now you have to play something else, and people don't understand the different keys of tuba. If you can't play something, they're just going to simply think that you can't you can't play the tuba well, even if it's like, well, if I had this instrument, I would be able to be okay. So to me, that's not a valid excuse. So I would say C for that reason, and I think most professionals and teachers would agree with that. Let's see. Would you rather own 10 mouthpieces that you can't play, or one instrument you can play but only with one mouthpiece picked on random? Random mouthpiece seems like a recipe for a really bad time. That's one sort of concern, but maybe it would be okay. But yeah, I guess I'd probably go with 10 mouthpieces. I don't know. As a double bass string doubler, I've ended up with a smaller C instrument. Again, then really never trying to fill an orchestra hall with it. It seems to work out. Yeah, and that's very true. So much of what we talk about with, what instrument to play is like, oh yeah, this is the right instrument for playing in an 80-person orchestra. And it's like, how many of us are playing in an 80-person orchestra all the time? I'm not doing that. Maybe someone in here is, but more than likely, that's not the case, and getting a gigantic C tuba or whatever is not necessarily the right route. I like having a 6-quarter C tuba, but I probably don't need it for a lot of things. Let's see. Can you play Fortnite dances. No. I've never played Fortnite, so I don't know any of the dances or the music associated with them. Tips for learning alto trombone. I wouldn't say that I have all the answers to that, but what I kind of do, or what I kind of did, I guess, I feel a little bit silly saying that I've mastered the trombone or alto trombone. Let me tell you what I did, because I don't quite think I've mastered it or anything. But I do some scale stuff. I play some Bordonis and things like that, but in alto clef. And really, honestly, I jumped in with solo literature just really slowly, and excerpts, the things that you were going to play. Because at the end of the day, for me, while I plan to eventually learn all the alto trombone solos and everything, I'm most kind of concerned with, okay, I get hired to play, this Schumann symphony. What, can I do it? And so I work on things like that. I work on the pieces that I might have to play. So that's a lot of what I've done. But to get really kind of some fluency, you got to kind of know your scales. You have to make sure that you have a lot of things kind of figured out. Let's see. How big is your mouthpiece if you, for a high school tubist looking into a C, would you recommend I sell my B flat or keep both if I'm financially capable? I've been saving for a long while. It's always nice if you can afford to not sell an instrument. But I think once you get the C, the times that you might use the B flat will probably be minimal. But that's not to say that it wouldn't be, you could keep it and sell it later. If it's not an urgent concern, I'd probably keep it, and maybe you want to buy an F tuba down the line and you sell the B flat to finance the F tuba. If you can get the C tuba that you think you should get, and that's the other thing. If you can sell the B flat and then get a $10,000 instrument instead of getting a $4,000 C tuba or something, maybe you should sell the B flat. But it sounds like there's a path for you to get a good C tuba and keep the B flat. I have no problems with that because it's also something you can decide to do later. That instrument can sit in its case and not get played if that's the way that it goes. I've never owned a B flat. I would love to. I would use it, especially doing some of these videos and things and teaching. I would love to have a B flat tuba. Is it worth me buying one? Probably not, but if I had one laying around, it would be awesome. Play something I will. I'm trying to get through all these comments. You're struggling with 58, so if you could play that one for region. I can play it. I've done my last master class on the All-State music for schools, so I think if you want to hear me play 58, you can check out that video. I think I need some time off of those etudes. What's my favorite animal? I don't know. A possum. Let's go with that. As my wife always tells me, they're America's marsupial. Keep the B flat. Don't think C tubas are worth it. That's a different discussion. And I don't necessarily agree that C tubas aren't a good idea. Like hippos, they call me Scales. It's an interesting nickname. Shoe reveal. Goodness. They don't call you Scales. They might. You don't know. We also saw that I just oiled this, right? Maybe euphonium time is over because of the valves. It's probably a good time that I need to take it in to the repair shop. Let's see here. When did I start playing? And also, did you start on C tuba in school? So I started playing in 4th grade. I started playing baritone then, and then they switched. The plan was to always play tuba. I mean, my dad is the same height as me. I knew that I was going to be tall. I didn't think I'd be as tall as I got, but I'm about 6'6", so it was pretty feasible that I would be able to hold a tuba and everything. So I switched to tuba when I was in 6th grade, and I didn't start on C tuba. But I did buy this C tuba as a freshman in high school. So I was very fortunate. It was basically a gift from my teacher. He didn't charge what he should have. He probably could have doubled the price and someone would have bought it. But yeah, so I played C tuba for a long time, longer than, started earlier than most. You're a junior high school tuba. My goal is to make state. Made 3rd chair last year, area, which was extremely heartbreaking. Advice to continue. What is your advice to continuing in music and not giving up? At the end of the day, there are always going to be those sorts of things that make you feel like you should quit. I'm sure that you could look at maybe even me from the outside and think that I've won everything I've done, and that's just simply not true. I've lost a lot. I've, especially in like international competitions, I probably have more silver medals than most. I've gotten second a lot, which is still good. Don't get me wrong. I've done well in things, but I haven't. There's a lot of not winning that I've had. So at the end of the day, because those bum me out. They bum everybody out. It's not fun to lose, or it's not fun to not get what you want. But at the end of the day, I think the best thing is just to be concerned about your own progress. Because that you can, sort of always win, right? If you're really diligent, that's really all that matters. And I've been beaten by people who no longer play music, and or I've been beaten by someone once and then I've won the next time. So, it's not going to be perfectly easy by any stretch, but yeah, I think that probably answers your question. What's my first name? Zach. It's not really a secret. On most of the videos it pops up on the screen. I suppose I could put it here, but I feel like I'm already kind of infringing on having too much on the screen. I was also afraid of having the things be too small so that you couldn't read them, especially for people who might be viewing on a phone or something. What euphonium mouthpiece would you recommend for a trombonist who plays a 4G? I wouldn't really look at it as being, when people ask me about doubling, I try to steer them away from this idea of, what instrument, what mouthpiece, what should I do for a person who actually plays this? Because when you play euphonium, you're not a trombonist, you're a euphonium player. You may not be a great one right away, or whatever the case may be, but I wouldn't think about it like that necessarily. And a 4G is probably not a bad option. I know a lot of people who play 4Gs on euphonium. I play a 3, a Dennis Wick 3AL, which is slightly bigger, but not by much. That's kind of my best advice, is that you don't need to think about it that way, and a 4G is probably fine. But you could try bigger if it depends on what sound you're getting and how happy with that sound you are. For me, if I play like my normal trombone mouthpiece in a euphonium, I get a really bright sound and I don't like it. So I went with something bigger. You probably just have to scroll down a little bit to press subscribe if you're on a computer. I'm not 100% sure on a phone. But yeah, 6'6". Yeah, that's why the 6/4 tuba doesn't really look that big. And I was probably 6'1" or 6'2" by the time I got it. I started high school at least 6 feet tall. So you can see that it is still big. I mean, compared to a trombone for scale, you can kind of see it. For reference, this tuba has a 20.5-inch bell. So it's definitely not a small instrument. Let's see. Rocket League. I've only played Rocket League a couple of times. I'm probably not very good at it. I don't know that I've ever scored on Rocket League, so I don't know if I have a favorite popsicle flavor. Um, your tuba teacher missed out on All-State by 6 points and 3 points, and now he's one of the greatest freelancers in the Chicago area. Yeah, I mean, that's especially like, you know, a lot of my friends talk about those sorts of things, and even what you do in college. I mean, I'm not saying that at any stage it is bad to succeed, but at the end of the day, you know, I made All-State in high school. Did I make first chair every time? No. But, you know, does anybody ask that in the professional world? No. Yeah, and frequent sub for the CSO. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's none of that matters. And, you know, the only people who ask me even what ensembles I played in college are generally people who are younger, like high school age students. In the professional world, most people don't ask those sorts of questions because they don't really matter. Because you could have been the best, you know, and you could be the best 17-year-old tuba player in the country, but, you know, that's probably still not a professional level, and it matters where you are as a professional. So, let's see. Can I play the third etude? Greens from Columbia. Welcome from Columbia. I'm not going to play the third etude. I've been playing it a lot, and I'm kind of done with all of them. Greens from Florida. Welcome. Greens from Guatemala. Yeah, I don't. For some reason, I don't believe you, Brady. Favorite book, just like in general. I don't know that I just have a regular favorite book. My favorite tuba book's probably the Bordoni. We'll go with that direction. Let's see here. Hello again, Logan. Blazovic are clearly the best. Yeah, but sometimes you don't want to play Blazovic all the time. There are a lot of good etudes in Blazovic. I know I said it yesterday. But that was when someone asked me for an etude book. In the Bordoni book, it is an etude book, but it's more of a vocalise book, so... play Bordoni, Bologna. Let's see, let's do number 6. See. Yeah, the chat definitely does change every day, it seems like. We got some of the core people here, and then some new people. New people's always good. Yes, I did miss a point. Everyone like and sub, or you'll drop your tuba. Yeah, please do like and sub. I don't know that you'll drop your tuba, but you might. So some people get offended by insults. I mean, you can say that I'm a bad player. It's probably not going to get to me. Thank you for subbing, Blonde Curly Boy. I mean, I have no control over the chats, so. How about some bass trombone? I can't keep up. A lot of numbers, I don't know what those. Yeah, well, maybe I will need someone to monitor the chat. I mean, as long as, as long as people aren't being mean, especially to each other, it's not a huge deal. Maybe Etude 1. If you're asking for all state etudes, I'm not going to play all state etudes. If you want to hear me play all state etudes, you can do it on demand and just watch it over and over again. I haven't practiced Etude 1 probably since the day that I recorded it, so it's not going to be better now than it was then. Yeah, I know that I was too close to the camera. My computer that's actually running this is kind of far away. I have like a laptop here that's controlling all the audio stuff and the when I use music on the screen. Let's see. It's a big cat. What is the most difficult piece that I've ever played? That's such a hard question. Because there are pieces that are technically challenging, there are pieces that are like conceptually challenging. And there's a sonata by Genotek Hawks, which was pretty conceptually challenging for me. Donald Benton? No, I don't know who that is. Can you play some eighth? I played some eighth notes and almost cried. Let's see. Yeah, I'll just, if there are real questions, I'll get to them, but kind of gone off the deep end. You lost your mouthpiece for 2 weeks in your tryouts tomorrow. Good luck. Shouldn't have lost it. What's my favorite piece? Oh, it's not that simple. There are too many good pieces. I'll do. Let's see. I really like Symphonie Fantastique. Does that count? How do I go about learning new instruments? The first thing, the first thing, and I would say almost the only thing that matters to me at first, is making sure I make a good sound on it. Obviously, you won't make your best sound that you're ever going to make right away, but all I do is really focus on the sound. I think that's the thing that a lot of people miss when they play multiple instruments. The last thing that I ever want is someone to hear me play euphonium and say, "Oh, that's pretty good for a tuba player," or someone hear me play tuba and say, "Oh, that's pretty good for a trombone player." I don't want anybody to say those sorts of things, and I don't want that to be a true statement. So for me, the first thing is really trying to get my sound together, and really do it right with the instrument. And then you got to learn the fingerings or the slide positions and things, whatever kind of it takes. But for the most part, all that's kind of intertwined, so it doesn't take forever to learn. Can I book a gig where you come to my house and play trombone all day? You can. It won't be free. Let's see. Prokofiev's a great composer. I really like Brahms. I've always liked Brahms. Use a Giddings mouthpiece. What type of mouthpiece would you recommend for euphonium? I heard the Wick was good. Yeah, I mean the Giddings mouthpiece may not be a bad one. I'm definitely not saying that your mouthpiece is bad. It might just be perfectly fine. But I play a Dennis Wick 3. For most people, I would say that's too big. Dennis Wick makes so many different euphonium mouthpieces. Stephen Mead has, I think it's literally 3 different lines of mouthpieces with Dennis Wick at this point in time. So yeah, that's a big, big part of it. They have so many different mouthpieces. So finding the right size, I think is important. And, I would kind of go from there. I would try to try a bunch of them. I play a classic series, which isn't, it's not a Stephen Mead mouthpiece, so it's not specifically for euphonium, I guess, but I probably wouldn't play a 3 AL on a trombone ever. Let's see. Yeah, I'll let Zach handle my my gig situation. Could you recommend a bass trombone mouthpiece? So I can tell you what I play, and then I can make some other kind of general suggestions. I play either a Dennis Wick 0 AL Heritage or this 1 AL Classic series. I've had the 0 for, I don't know, basically since I bought this instrument, a long time ago. Probably like 8 years or so. And I played this for so long, and I got this, and I liked it, and I still like it, but I just am so comfortable with the 0, so I mostly go to the 0. But yeah, I'd probably not recommend the 0 just because it's pretty big. I don't play all ridiculously big mouthpieces, but I'm definitely hesitant to suggest big mouthpieces to people. So either a 1 or maybe even a 2. I have a lot of friends who play 2s from Dennis Wick, and the Dennis Wick numbers don't totally compare to Bach numbers when you start going with the bass trombone stuff. But 1.5, 1.25, great mouthpieces. There's so many great manufacturers these days. It's not the days of, well, you get the Bach that fits. There are 30 great manufacturers of mouthpieces. Yeah, if you think you're ready for a change, I mean, I might try to order a few mouthpieces, from somewhere with a good return policy. You can try them and figure out what works. I have a hard time just buying a mouthpiece and hoping that it works out. Generally, I try to go somewhere and try it first, which, is a little bit hard these days. And a lot of times, I have friends who have a lot of mouthpieces, and that's how I try a mouthpiece, like, oh, I have to have that, and I go buy it after that. So, all those are good orchestral pieces, Brady. Let's see. I'm doing all right, Jose. Glad that the performance went well. Do I have a Twitter? I technically do. I don't even know if I can log into it. You're welcome to follow me on Twitter. You probably will never get an update on Twitter or a tweet on Twitter. What should you look for when getting a new mouthpiece? I would say that the simplest answer to that is something that makes your job easier and not harder. I don't want to play a mouthpiece that makes my job harder. So, I try to find something that I like the sound of and is comfortable on my face, which is really, really subjective. I like the Dennis Wick, rims. That's why I play their mouthpieces for the most part. I like the rest of the mouthpiece too, but the rims to me are just like exactly what I want out of a rim of a mouthpiece, and I have no complaints about that. So, rim is important to me, and then finding the right mouthpiece for the right instrument, that's a big part of it. Any tips for people trying to switch from music ed to performance? Yeah, I think the biggest thing is you probably have to kick up your practice a little bit. Maybe you were practicing like a performance major before, but I think that's a big part of it, is making sure that you're practicing enough. And realize that there may not be a job right at the end of a performance degree. That's not always how it works. But yeah, it's really just got to kick it up on practicing and, try to take lessons from people that aren't your only teacher. That's always good too. It's good to be going to tuba conferences and stuff like that whenever they happen again. But have I tried hibachi? Yes, I've been to a hibachi place. What did you choose the schools you did for all of your degrees? Why did I choose? I can read. I chose, especially, I went to two different colleges, one of them at two different times, but I chose the University of North Texas as an undergrad because it's big, and big doesn't mean good necessarily, but in this case, it is a pretty good school, and there are plenty of good players on different instruments. So that was really helpful for me, especially. I thought I knew what I was going to do and what I was going to major in college, and I was close, but I started out college just as a jazz trombone major, and I added tuba later. And if I just had chosen a school for trombone, maybe the tuba stuff wouldn't have worked out as well, which going to the University of North Texas, it's kind of like no matter what I did, it kind of would have worked out. And I also applied to be a classical trombone performance major, which I got into, and so that was something I was considered. And again, that school is one where I kind of knew whatever I ended up doing, it would be fine. And then Northwestern, I wanted to be in Chicago. That was part of it. I really liked the teacher there at the time, Rex Martin, and so those were big parts of it. And yeah, those are, and then I went back to North Texas, as a doctoral student. The teaching that I could do there, being able to teach really good undergrads is good. So I don't know your euphonium teacher. Let's see. Let's see. You have. Thank you, Logan. I'm glad that we all love low grass U. I know a lot of people went to DePaul. I think DePaul's a great school. I didn't go there, so I don't know much about like the inner workings. But especially when I was living in Chicago and playing in the jazz scene there, it felt like everyone that I knew went to DePaul for jazz. And there are tuba players that I knew also, but I didn't know them quite as well. Some of the jazz people that went to DePaul, but yeah, I think it's a good school. You know, I haven't heard their wind ensemble perform or something like that to really know, but I mean, good people come out of there, and that's really what I look for is in a school is, are people winning jobs out of that school? Are people going on to do things? I think that matters. Let's see. Oh, Lou Malnati's easy. Have you ever ridden a tractor? No. Why haven't I ridden a tractor? I don't know, I should. My father-in-law has a tractor. I should ask him if I can ride it next time I'm there. Oh, if I had a dream horn, what would it be? Ooh, that's a tough one. You know, I guess if I'm thinking of my dream, it's hard. I really like the horns that I have, but I think at this point, you kind of get to a point with having instruments that, yeah, you maybe have a dream horn, but it's like, this is my dream horn for this specific task. And you kind of go in stages of, you get the instrument that you need, and then you get more specific instruments. And then now I kind of want sort of, you know, instrument, especially for tuba, you know, I've got a 6-quarter C, great, you know, big tuba for playing an orchestra. I've got an F that isn't a small F, but it's, you know, it's definitely not a big F. And I don't have anything in the middle, so I think a middle thing is my dream right now, is to get something that can kind of is a do anything sort of tuba. And, you know, I'd like to get a bass trombone, I wouldn't say upgrade, but I'd like to keep this bass trombone, but also get probably a Shires, but Edwards is also in that conversation, or potentially like a Greenhoe Bach or something like that. I like my bass trombone, but modern valves are pretty cool. But yeah, I'd like to get probably a Besson euphonium is kind of what I've thought of, but you know, a lot of it would be if I make the decision that I'm going to buy this instrument, but like, let's say I want to buy a new euphonium. I want to get a nice brand new euphonium. I'm going to spend probably a year doing that and trying to get a really nice one, making sure it's the right one. Because if I'm spending $8,000 on a euphonium, I'm not going to probably do that twice. But yeah, it's a good question. Yami York is great. It's just like, it's hard for me to think of a scenario where I wouldn't see a Yami York as being an instrument that I could split up and buy a lot more instruments. You know, it's like if someone gave me a Yami York and I could turn around and sell it for $40,000, I could get an inertial 6-quarter C, and then I could also get 2250, and I could probably get a Chimbasso too. You know, it's like there's so many things I could get for that price. Bye, Brady. What are your thoughts on travel tubas? I mean, they're definitely not a, you know, a bad thing, I guess. I just would, to me, they're too expensive. If they were like $300, I'd buy one. But the fact that they're generally a lot more than that, I can't justify buying, you know, $1,000 or $2,000 travel tuba when I could, for that same price, I could get a euphonium or not a euphonium, I could get a trombone that I might actually use in the real world. So I don't really have any plans of getting one, but you know, there are definitely situations. The other thing too is my life doesn't benefit from one. You know, I live in a house where I can play pretty much any hour of the night, and I do travel some, obviously very little right now, but usually I'm, you know, back reasonably quickly. So, but what type of tuba is a do anything tuba? So I mean, obviously there is no true, you know, do anything, but something medium. I've got small and I've got extra large. I don't have a medium tuba right now, and I think that's it's not a terrible thing, but it's just one of those things where here's the situations that I don't like. Like someone hires me to play in their, church brass group, and I get the music and it's really low, and I could play it on F tuba, but it probably wouldn't sound as good as playing it on C tuba. And then I show up with my C tuba, and they're kind of like, "That's really big, like, can you play softly?" And it's like, I haven't even played a note yet. I can do most things on my C tuba, but I would probably rather have something smaller for certain things. So a do anything tuba that I'm kind of thinking of, it's one of three things. It's either a small C, something maybe like the Eastman that a lot of people have, that's a really small bore size but is a C tuba with a decently large bell. To me, that's a tuba that you can do so much with. I can play almost any solo on it, but I could also do some light orchestral stuff. And if that's the only horn I had, I could do a lot of orchestral stuff on it. Or a big piston F is another one. That would be a great instrument. Or maybe even an E-flat tuba is another one that I'm thinking of. So those are kind of the three options that I would say are kind of do anything. But I mean, that category doesn't exist. But if it does exist, I definitely don't necessarily have that. I also don't want to carry a 6-quarter C tuba around when I don't need it. Ever played in a green hoe? I played one at the Army conference. It was beautiful. Yeah, green hoes are great. I especially like the older ones before Gary Greenhoe retired, like the Greenhoe optimized box. I almost bought one instead of this bass trombone when I got this, and I kind of, some days I regret it, but who knows. Let's see. Donald Ben is an amazing trombone player. I don't know him, but I'm sure he is. Why are euphoniums the cost of cars? That's a good question. I don't know. I don't think I think they're making a profit on them, but running businesses it's a challenging thing. So I definitely don't have all the answers. I think the reality is that enough people will pay for it, so they can charge that. But also you have to realize that craftsmen make these things. You have to pay for it. It's not just, oh, this is just brass. It's, there's a craftsman, especially with a lot of euphoniums, they're coming out of Europe and things. There's the euro is generally higher than the dollar. There's all these sorts of things. Have I been to New Jersey? Yes, I've been to New Jersey. I went there for the International Women's Brass Conference in 2017, I think. Wessex has some nice brass instruments. Yeah. At what age did I wear glasses? I started wearing glasses when I was 7. Probably needed them before that. I know a tuba professor in Florida who has a Wessex F tuba. What's the most expensive tuba? I've seen the Yama York. That's pretty much by far the most expensive tuba. You got a 4-valve B-flat tuba, mirror from B-flat tuba, need a C tuba for college. Yeah, for most people, I would say that that's a good idea. By the way, thanks for answering my question. No problem. Yeah, I'm glad that you've been following me on Instagram. I thought I recognized your name from there. Yeah, it's hard to keep track of the names, especially on Instagram, because people change them so much and things. Can you teach me how to get better? Yeah, you can take a lesson from me. Rotary valve or piston tubas? I like both. I have 2 rotary valve tubas and no piston tubas, but I like that rotors generally don't disappoint me mechanically. That's kind of nice, but they're just different. They have different pros and cons. No problem, Jose. I just don't follow you on Insta. I don't know what that means. Do you switch your playing when playing chamber music and orchestra? Yeah, definitely. I've played chamber music with people who play just like they're in orchestra, and I really don't like that. It's a totally different thing. I would say that there are chamber music elements in orchestra a good bit, like thinking about like the Mahler 1 tuba solo, you're playing it after the bassoons, and I always play it just like the bassoon would play it. So yeah, that's, I definitely approach them differently. To me, chamber music, I know I'm listening to everyone that I'm playing with, and I assume, at least I start off with the assumption that they're also listening. And in an orchestra, you are listening, but it's not feasible to, for me as the tuba player to listen to the seventh chair viola player and how they play something. So it's just a different kind of thing. But, they have some similarities for sure. You can message me on Instagram. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. Or you can email me, zachmarleymusic@gmail.com or lowbrassu on Instagram. And I charge $60 an hour. I don't play Minecraft. What's the best advice I can give to someone pursuing a grad degree in performance? I think the big thing is kind of picking one, and what I always suggest is having lessons with all of the teachers that you're considering. I applied to 4 grad schools. Is that right? 4, and I had lessons with all of them, all the teachers there. And I think that helped me get into them. I think that helped me get scholarship money. I think that helped me build a relationship. And also it helped me form an opinion, because there were several, teachers that I took lessons from, and I was like, I would really like to study with this person. And then there were some that, maybe I'm not saying that there was a complete hierarchy, but for a lot of things, for a lot of schools, that was a big part of it. But there's other things too. It's not just about the teacher. It's about the school. It's about the location. My 2 top choices for grad school, for my master's, were Northwestern and Baylor. And they were really close. I really wanted to study with Ken Eshelman. I really wanted to study with Brooks Martin. I thought both the schools were really good. I kind of leaned towards Northwestern school-wise just because they had a doctoral program also, and I'd known they're good tuba players and good players of all instruments, especially brass, coming out of both of those schools. But I didn't want to live in Waco, Texas, over living in Chicago. So I didn't have to take the GRE for any of the schools. I think knowing how I think, if a school said that I had to take the GRE, I probably just didn't apply. You're getting back into playing the tuba and notice a sort of shaky or trembling tone. Not intentionally trying to use vibrato. What am I doing wrong? Especially getting back into it, I wouldn't read too far into that. There are muscles involved. There's air involved. That you might just need a little bit of time to get things going and get things to go well. Have I ever said a cuss word? Yeah, I don't do it on streams. Do I have any experience playing in brass band? Not really, no. Not like British brass bands. I've done some, kind of New Orleans brass bands. Yeah, especially if it's been a year since you played coming out of high school. I would just kind of keep practicing, and come back in 2 or 3 weeks if that still persists. And especially if you're not doing it consistently, I don't think it's much likely to get better. But let's see. Have any fun wardrobe malfunction stories? I've definitely ripped my pants on gigs before. Especially almost all my gigs I wear black pants, black dress pants. Eventually they get worn out, so I've had to have some gaff tape situations, and it is what it is. Saying hi from Penn State. I'm in Velvet Brown's tuba studio. I think I recognize your handle from Instagram. But yeah, also, you're not the only Velvet Brown student who frequents these streams. Tubaman365, I won't say his name on here, but I guess he's given his first name Adam out. But let's see. Do you have any tips for quickly coming back to concert tuba after playing sousaphone at a loud college band? I would just be really, really kind of relaxed with it. I always think about balance. And what are you doing with the sousaphone? Okay, you're probably playing really loud. You're probably doing a little bit too much, because that's kind of what you do with sousaphone. It's fun, and that's just what happens. I would go to playing or I go to play tuba, and I play really, really relaxed, simple lyrical things and that sort of thing, and kind of do the polar opposite. But yeah, no problem, Cameron. Hope you have a good rest of your night. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot of what I would think about. Is just kind of, if I'm going back to sousaphone or going back to a concert tuba, is just trying to get my sound together, because the sound is a little bit different. You ever played not tuba? You played trombone and euphonium. Does that count? I played a lot of piano as a kid. I don't play professionally on piano at all anymore. But not that I ever played professionally. But I took lessons as a kid. I don't take lessons anymore. But I always have a keyboard out in my office and can play some ideas and things. Practice my my scales the other day just to see if I could still do it. I couldn't. Spoiler. But yeah, let me see if I can find something to play. Maybe something from the Blazevich book. The clock's ticking. What's the clock ticking for? I'm in Maine Allstate as a tubist, third chair. I want to start euphonium, but not sure how to go about doing it. Would it help with the upper register on tuba? I think it can. I've thought long and hard about that, and I think that all of the range stuff on brass instruments is pretty, it's all related. So I think that can definitely help. I don't necessarily go to that as a solution to that, but I don't think you'll do any damage or anything like that. Anything to help with tuning, any guides like that? There really isn't too much like that I can think of. Are you talking about trombone or tuba? A lot of it is you really have to get these tuners to work well. That kind of drives everything. Did you design your website, or did you? Yeah, I designed my own website. I use WordPress, so it's not like, I didn't like do all the coding or anything, but it's a little bit more than someone who's just doing like a Squarespace website or something like that. Should make an instrument called low brass. Sure. Tuba. Yeah, so I mean, a lot of it is learning how to use your first valve slide. Getting comfortable with that. I think that a lot of it is learning. It's both learning kind of what should be the case, but also it really comes down to the ears. And I practice with drones a lot. So what I did especially when I was in high school, when I kind of first started doing them, one of my teachers gave me a tuning CD, and it was just 3 minutes of a drone in every key, or 3 or 4 minutes. It's like 40 minutes long or something. And I would just sit there and play my scales like in whole notes, and just with that drone in the background. So on YouTube you can search for cello drones, and I use those from time to time. I wouldn't use just like a sine wave like a tuner might produce, but yeah. But yeah, I designed my website myself. I mean, I use templates and things. It's not like I am some master, but most everything I try to do myself. Maybe to my own fault, I guess. Like this overlay I made today, and did the gradients and things with the blue, and I had the logo and everything already done, but let's see. I mean, I prefer to have my first, you're not going to be able to move them in practice, to fix tuning issues the way that, you can pretty much see that this moves with gravity. I mean, it can get stuck. But, it pretty much falls with gravity. So you're not going to get that, you're not going to use grease, so to speak. You need something thinner. So what I use, my camera's not on autofocus, so even if I get closer, it won't really help, but I use Monster Oil's trumpet slide oil. So it's designed for first and third valves on trumpet, and that's what I put on my first valve, and I put on my fifth valve on my F tuba too. So that to me really helps. But if your slide's not perfectly shaped, it won't necessarily work. You might need to take it to a repair person. That sort of thing is really, really finicky, and even on my F tuba, it's not quite as good as my C tuba. My C tuba is pretty much as good as it gets, I feel like, and my F tuba is it's good. But grease really isn't meant to make it, your average tuning slide grease isn't meant to be fast. It's meant to move when you need it to, but stay put. So those are different things. I did go to high school. Unfortunately, I had to do that at some point in my life. Keep the questions coming. Mouthpiece recommendations. You ordered a PT50 and have had a 7B since middle school. The PT50 is a good mouthpiece. A lot of people like it. I've never been able to make PT mouthpieces work for me. I haven't tried in like 6 or 7 years, so maybe it's time to give them another chance, but they just never really worked for me. I have so many friends who sound like $1,000,000 on them, and to me, I never really liked the way that I sounded on it. I play Dennis Wick mouthpieces, and I really like them. I bought my first Dennis Wick mouthpiece when I was like a sophomore in high school. It was my first trombone mouthpiece was a Dennis Wick. It took me a while to convert all the way over to Dennis Wick, but I was playing mostly Dennis Wick for years. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, mouthpieces are so personal. So it's really hard for me to say this is the right mouthpiece for everybody. Especially I don't know you. I don't know what your playing is like. But there are so many good mouthpiece brands at this point. It's really a trial and error. Got to go on that mouthpiece safari to really figure it out sometimes. You have a Jupiter Quantum 5080 Contra with a trigger adjustable first valve. It's pretty slow. Thanks for that. Yeah, hopefully that'll help. It's got to be really, really clean. But the slide oil, that really did it for me. Before that, I was making my own stuff, and it was a chore, and it was just really annoying. So yeah, I just eventually found this, and it worked really well. Yeah, the best way to get a hold of me is on Instagram, not Facebook. I can't promise that I'll read a message on Facebook. And honestly, I'm probably going to deactivate my Facebook. I only had my Facebook because I had it deactivated for years, but I had to reactivate it as a part of being a teaching fellow. But I'm no longer a teaching fellow, so I don't need to do it. What do you think about Vincent Bach tuba mouthpiece? My first mouthpiece was a Vincent Bach mouthpiece. I liked it. I mean, I didn't know anything, but I liked it. I know some professionals who sound great on them, but I wouldn't say that they have a large kind of command of the mouthpiece, piece of the pie in the tuba land. But there are people who play on them and sound great. And that's the thing, for every mouthpiece brand, maybe not every single mouthpiece, but for every mouthpiece brand, there's someone who sounds just amazing playing on it. Will you sound amazing playing on it? Maybe, maybe not. So that's a big part of it. But yeah, I know with COVID, it's hard to try out mouthpieces. Yeah, it's a tricky situation. I would try to find like an online retailer that you can, you can try out things and they have a good return policy. Let's see. What's the best pair of pants? They're just pants. I have some white pants because I have them for gigs because that's a thing that happens from time to time. They're from the Steve Harvey collection, and they were the only pants that I could find that were white on short notice when I needed them one time. I am married. But cool. I guess I'll play something if there aren't questions. Been a lot of questions today, which is good. Yeah, they're the Steve Harvey collection pants. famous? I wouldn't call myself famous, no. I feel like if I were famous, I'd have more than 16 people on my live stream right now. Where did I get the Steve Harvey pants? I think I got them at a K&G store. It was on the way to the gig, and on the way to the gig, I got called saying, "Hey, do you have white pants?" And I said, "No." And they're like, "Can you borrow some white pants? Can you find some white pants?" And I was like, "I doubt I can borrow some from anybody. I'll try to find some." And I found some that are definitely too short for me, but they had the right waist at the time, and so I wore them. Have you ever been able to compare Neptune to PT6 side by side? Yeah, several times. I mean, they're definitely related to each other for sure. I mean, I feel like there's variation in PT6 even to give it a fair comparison, but it's really just an overgrown PT6. They're very similar instruments. I think if I didn't own the Neptune, I'd probably play a PT6. What's the highest one I can play on tuba? I don't know. High enough, for sure. So that was probably high enough. What's my main motivation for practicing? It changes. I mean, at the end of the day, I like making money playing brass instruments. So anything that helps me with that, and it changes what I need to practice and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's how I support myself. So if I can support myself better by playing better, there's some pretty good incentive. When you start attaching finances to it, it can definitely help. But it comes and goes. It's not always that I'm completely motivated, but I generally stay pretty motivated to practice. What's the most expensive instrument I own? If I were to sell them, I mean, this instrument isn't made anymore, but it definitely wasn't cheap when it was made. So probably my tuba. I paid more for this trombone, but this would go for the most online. Do you like Call of Duty? I'm not great at it, so not really. I don't want to join your Minecraft realm. I've never played Minecraft. I don't really intend to start. Nothing against it, but it is shiny. I might take the lacquer off at some point, but for now it has lacquer. Let's see. How do I pay you because I need help on my etudes for TMA region? If you want to take a lesson from me, just message me on Instagram, or you can email me, zachmarleymusic@gmail.com, and we can talk about that there. But I accept most forms of payment that are modern. Probably going to start on trombone for my school's jazz band soon. Do you have any tips to get started? Use your ear to figure out those slide positions. I think one of the cool things about learning trombone, if you've already played another instrument, it's that you can use your ear to find these slide positions instead of just doing what you're told, which that's how I learned, and I think that works out better because you're learning it the right way. But yeah, that's how I would encourage you to work on scales and things, work on simple things that you're already you're not thinking about a lot. Full body reveal at 1 million subs. Even though 1 million subs is probably never going to happen, I'm not committing to that. I live in Texas. Not really from Texas, but I live in Texas. I'm getting close to, actually, no. Got a couple more years before I've lived in Texas more than anywhere else. Let's see. What brand is my F-tube? My F-tube is a B&S Symphony. B&S Symphony from 1972, so it's an old one. But yeah, it's a great tuba. They don't make it anymore. Why do I want to take off the lacquer? Lacquer just is, it's not necessary. It's really just to sell instruments at the end of the day. It makes it shiny. But in my opinion, I think that horns resonate better without it. It may be all in my head, but that's kind of why. What part of Texas? I live in North Texas, north of Dallas. It's a weird question, but how do you improve your offbeats? I'm playing triptych for a concert band. I can't seem to get them down. I mean, a lot of it is subdividing. If you're feeling the beat and the offbeat at all time, it almost makes no difference as to which one you're playing. So, there's a lot of, I do a lot of metronome practice. I do a lot of metronome practice with a metronome called Time Guru. You can get it on your cell phone. I don't know how much it costs. I bought it a long time ago. But yeah, so I use that, and it has a disappearing function. So what it can do is it can, it can start off with, getting beats, with the ands all the time, and then it can disappear, which kind of makes you have to think it, which helps. My wife and I, neither of us are band directors. I'm not a band director, nor is she. How many languages can you speak? Pretty much just one. I can understand some Spanish. I took Spanish in high school and middle school, but I'm fluent in Steve Harvey. I have one pair of Steve Harvey pants, just one. Apple or Android? Android. Yeah, $2. I think it was more when I got it, but it's a really great app. It's really great metronome. It's my favorite metronome. And another function that's nice is you can create these complex metronomes, things that you would never even need, like 1/16 note and two triplet quarter notes, and then 4 quintuplets. You could do that and have a weird metronome like that, which you're probably never going to need. But what's nice about something like that is you can set up these metronomes. Like I have one for Ride of the Valkyries. That's just that dum bum ba dum bum 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 ba dun dun dun, and it just helps me with that rhythm. So sure, you can write a Steve Harvey lick. Let's see. I'll play another etude. Let's see. Do you know how to play Capriccio? Or what Capriccio are you talking about? You're talking about the Penderecki Capriccio? How long did it take me to learn the TME etudes? It depends on which instrument. Some of them took me a long time. But most of them I'd kind of, other than the tuba ones I had familiarity with. So probably the longest one was just 58, I think people have this misconception that I just, look at them and play them and it's perfect. And, number 58, I had to do all the slow practice that I tell all my students to do. I don't think that they believe me or actually do it, but that's what it took. I'm not going to play the TME etudes. If you want to hear me play them, you can access it on there. Are you asking what mouthpiece I just played on? It's a Dennis Wick 2L. And I just did a mouthpiece video with all 30-something of my mouthpieces if you want to check that out on my YouTube channel. Border Anyone, maybe I'll play Border Anyone. Are there any apps that you would recommend for ear training? I think they do have a mobile app, but the mobile app I think costs money and their website doesn't. Musictheory.net has a really nice resource it helped me out in some of my classes in college and things, of making sure that my ear training was all together. I mean, obviously it can always still get better, but you can do things like interval tests and, play an interval and then you click what it is, things like that. And on a computer, it's free. I think they have a mobile app, and I think you can even use the website on a phone. So to me, there's not really a point of having the app, but yeah, that's a good one. I use I have tonal energy on my iPad, and a lot of people, that's a common one that everybody knows. I also use on my phone, because tonal energy was not on Android for maybe not a long time, but when I was deciding to get a tuner, so I got this app called Tunable at the time, and it looks like this, and it kind of has the same sort of function where there's the smiley face. So that green line, if it's in tune, that green expands all the way. But what's nice about this is, unlike tonal energy, the smiley face, if you're not looking at it, you don't really get anything from it, where this kind of saves it for a bit. You can look at it and see how you did, and I like that. But yeah, how's it going, Hudson? But yeah, I use those two, tonal energy, and I use musictheory.net a lot with my students, even been teaching a lot of Zoom lessons, and that's something that's pretty nice to use, because I'll share my screen, and I did it in a 6th grade lesson today. We were working on just reading bass clef notes, and it was really nice. I could pull it up on the screen, and it's like, what note is this? You don't know this one? Do you know something around it? Can that help you? And we worked on things that way, which I think was pretty helpful. So musictheory.net has a ton of great resources, and the website's free. The app probably, with how much I've gotten out of that, I probably should just buy the app, but I'm cheap, so I didn't. But yeah, I would encourage you to use those. For tuning stuff, I use drones a lot. I don't have too many music-centric apps on my phone that I would use. But yeah, there are plenty of resources out there these days. But yeah, maybe I'll find another etude to play if there aren't some questions. Also, I did want to ask just everyone, with the overlay, does everyone feel like it's a pretty good layout where they can still see everything they need to on screen? But especially if anybody's watching on their phone, does it, can you read it? Is the text big enough? Should I go with fewer words so it can make the text bigger? But yeah, I'm just kind of curious. It's good. Cool. Enzo, are you on a phone or are you on a computer? It's good? Good. Well, it looks like everyone's saying it's positive, it's good. Just checking in, videos are really helped you learn the etudes. Good. I'm glad they worked out. It's also interesting to know just if people are using their phones for most things, or if they have a computer, what their situation is. Because it kind of, it makes it different to kind of what I do audio-wise, what sounds better on one versus the other. I think Appreciate for, the Penderecki, that's a great piece. I've worked on it. I haven't performed it ever. I can play some of it, but I haven't worked on it in a long time, so I'd rather not. That's definitely a hard piece. Would I recommend memorizing scales? Yes, I would say that's pretty important. Just having your all of your major scales at least memorized is pretty important and expected from a professional, or from that you could always be asked in an audition or something like that to play your scales. That's unlikely, but it's assumed that as a professional you have your scales together. What do the 5th valve and 6th valve on some tubas do? The 5th valve is they essentially do. They don't do the same thing, but they're extending the low range a little bit, and they also give you more options. Every time you add a valve, you multiply by 2 for your total amount of combinations. So a 3-valve tuba has 8 combinations, a 4-valve tuba has 16, 5, 32, and 6 has 64, assuming that they're all independent valves, which is mostly the case, but there are some examples where that's not true. But essentially, the 5th valve helps with some tuning stuff in the low range, because as we go down in low range, it starts to get essentially gets sharper because we're not going through enough tubing. Because to go down a half step, we need a percentage of tubing and not necessarily a specific length. So it helps with that. And then the sixth valve does the same thing, but 4 is fine. My personal opinion is that 4 is fine on B flat. If I bought a B flat tuba, I wouldn't really care to have a fifth valve. If I could get a good deal on a fifth valve, I'd probably buy it, but I wouldn't worry about it. On a C tuba, as my main C tuba, if I had multiple tubas, it kind of doesn't matter, but I have one C tuba, I wouldn't have a 4-valve C tuba, my personal opinion. And I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't even entertain a 4-valve F tuba. So yeah, none of it is a need, but you can get into situations where you have a hard time playing things because you don't have enough valves. You have a tuba player friend looking to learn bass trombone for the school's jazz band, from amateur to just learning the basics, as he doesn't know too much. Any tips? He may be watching right now. The big thing that when I was picking up bass trombone was the same situation. I was a tuba player primarily, and I wanted to play in the jazz band. And I played in the jazz band on drum set in middle school, but I wasn't that good, and I wasn't going to make it into the high school group. So, I started playing bass trombone, and a lot of it is learning the positions, and assuming they're a good tuba player, a lot of your ear training will help you guide you with your slide, and making sure you know what the valves do. And you'll find that not all trombone players really knew what both of the valves do all the time. So that's important to make sure that that's something that they've kind of figured out. I don't really think about embouchure. I know that there are things that are different, and I'm not denying that, but I always go for the sound. When I pick up an instrument, whatever instrument it is, my goal is to make the closest thing I can to whoever my favorite player is, or whatever. That's something that I kind of go for. The slide position is different on bass trombone than tenor. No, not exactly. In reference, if you want to get really nitpicky, in reference to the bell, they generally are. This is a pretty wide slide. It may not be a huge margin. No, these are pretty much the same, but in some cases, and I guess it still is with this instrument, but it's not quite as much. The placement of the bell, where the bell meets the slide, that's not exactly the same spot. So if you're referencing the bell, it's not a perfect, one-to-one comparison, but that's probably not what most people are asking. But the fact that you have 2 valves, knowing what both those valves do, and in combination with the slide, can be different, because you could make a tenor with a second valve, but at that point, I'm not even sure if it's a tenor trombone. What is your advice for practice for newbies with F tuba? The low register are quite hard for newbies on F. A lot of just slow lyrical stuff. I play a lot of Bordonis on F tuba. Maybe try some of those down an octave, or down like a 4th or a 5th is probably a better way to go about it. That's definitely a big thing that's helped me. I always tell my students to work on getting a good sound down there, kind of a mezzo piano and kind of relaxed sort of thing, before you try to play loud down there, really. How much of a size difference is between a bass trombone mouthpiece and a tuba one? It's generally pretty considerable. So I know this is probably not the best angle, but it's a pretty big difference. I wouldn't say that they're very comparable for the most part. You have to record region on Wednesday. Good luck. Any good warm-up books to recommend? The 20-minute warm-up by Michael Davis is a good one, and it's got a nice little practice CD. That's kind of a fun one to play out of. He has a 15-minute one also, but I kind of prefer the 20-minute one. But yeah, that's a good one. Try to find another etude to play. What are the main difference between the Bach 42 and the Bach 50 slide? So I can't show you them because I only have a Bach 50 slide. But, you wouldn't notice it much by looking at it, because they're both pretty wide. I think they're the same width, if I remember correctly. But the big difference is that a 42 slide is a 547 bore slide. So what that means is, you know, if I were to measure the inside, I think it's the inside of that tube of the slide, it would be 0.547, 547 thousandths of an inch, versus the Bach 50 slide, which is 562 thousandths of an inch, or 562. People just say it that way. So it's bigger. The tubes are physically larger. They have a larger diameter. So that's really the main difference between them. Is just the overall size. And some people even play a Bach 50 slide on Bach 42 bell sections. That's something that the two tenor trombone players in the Chicago Symphony do. See, I've tried that. I loved it, but after a while, it didn't sound good on it anymore, and then I went back to the 42 slide. Yeah, I mean, I've tried it too, and I've never done it in a professional situation. But also part of that, which part of the Chicago way of doing it, specifically Jay Friedman would do it this way, but I think also Michael Mulcahy would at least use a lightweight slide. I think they both use lightweight slides, but Jay Friedman would always have a rose brass bell, or probably not always, but often have a rose brass bell, and then have a lightweight nickel slide that's a Bach 50 slide. So I think that does make a difference. I don't have a Bach 50 slide that's lightweight. I've wanted to buy one, and I probably will eventually. It's just like, do I want to spend $1,000 on something that's just kind of me tinkering around with? Probably not. But eventually I might get one. 30 is your favorite. Yeah, it's a great one. Can you play any of the Region 28 tuba etudes? I don't know what region that is. I don't know if that makes a difference. But if you want to hear me play the all-state etudes for Texas, if that's what you're asking, you can find them on my YouTube channel. Welcome back, Disrespect. I'll keep going with this same etude. Your 42 slide is heavier than your 50 slide. How can you tell if it's lightweight? So lightweight can mean a couple of different things from different manufacturers, and it's a little bit tricky to give you a clear-cut answer, but the way that Bach does it, like if the instrument says LT in front of the number, so this is a Bach LT16M, and what that LT means is that this slide is made of nickel silver and not brass. So the whole thing is nickel, or the whole outside is nickel silver, which is lighter than brass. So that's kind of where the lightweight comes from. You will see other companies have lightweight brass slides, and what that generally means, let me put this back. A lightweight brass slide generally means that it's a slide that doesn't have these pieces right here over the top. I can't remember their names. Escapes me right now. But they're missing these pieces. And from my understanding, Bach doesn't do that from the factory, but that's a somewhat common Bach modification that people do. But yeah, so that's how you tell if it's lightweight, or what Bach would say is lightweight. Yes, I'm used to saying the region. But yeah, you could, if you want to hear me play those etudes, they're online. I'm pretty sick of them at this point, as I'm sure all of you are also, but I don't have to audition. And also I think the thing to realize is you're not going to get a better performance of me playing them now than when I played them before. One, a live stream audio isn't as good. Two, I haven't practiced them as much since doing them. So tips on cleanliness of articulation: go slow. Going slow solves so many problems. I can't tell people enough to go slowly. It's so important. It's so helpful. It solves so many problems. Let's see. You will see the vest again. The vest will make an appearance. It is too hot for the vest right now, but it will get cold, and the vest will become a necessity. So maybe not a necessity, but I will wear the vest again. It's too hot right now. There's no vest happening while it's hot. And realize that this room gets hot enough on its own with, I've got 2 giant video lights on each side. I've got multiple computers running. It gets hot. So I don't want to wear a vest. What do those do exactly? I don't really know. I don't want to give you a half answer, but anything. I mean, it's adding weight. Maybe it does something. I'm sure some instrument manufacturer will tell you something like it makes the sound more secure or something like that. I don't know. Changing mass somewhere makes a difference on an instrument. So if you change the mass, something is going to change. But I don't know. I'm going to head out. See ya. Thanks for another great stream. Yeah, no problem. The Han Solo vest will come back. But yeah, I mean, removing these definitely would lighten it. I'm not sure if I know anybody that had theirs removed. I know people who don't have them on there, but I don't know anybody who, did it and could say, it was like this before, now it's like this. But you'll see that from time to time from manufacturers. What are we playing today? That was Bordoni number 10, as the Rochu book has them numbered. The numbers change depending on what book you're using. but generally they're not, it's pretty similar order, but that's number 10 from the Bordoni book, the Rochu Bordoni book, I should say. You're gonna head out. Thanks for joining the stream for a while. You've watched my Team 82 videos over 20 times. Appreciate the views. What do you think the best tuba for an advanced player? That's so hard to say. I would say that pretty much every advanced tuba player has, like most professional tuba players have multiple tubas, and it's the right instrument for the right job. The best instrument for playing in a brass quintet is almost certainly not the best instrument for playing in an orchestra. And even orchestra, it's what repertoire are you playing? Are you playing Brahms, or are you playing Mahler, or are you playing Berlioz? Most people play different things for different situations. But there are a lot of really good instruments out there. Tips for double and triple tongue: go slow. I do a lot of just practicing the syllables, and then I practice them playing scales. Favorite brand of water? I don't really buy bottled water pretty much ever. Yeah, I know that the link isn't working. The website's not done yet, so sorry. But yeah, I think I'm going to get off of here pretty soon, so if you got some final questions, I'll play an etude. I have an Eastman 623 and a Wessex Champion, and a Leningrad B flat tuba. Yeah, good. I know the Eastman. I don't know the Wessex Champion or the Leningrad. I personally like B&S better because of the tone it produces. Yeah, I've got two B&S tubas. I like them. Do you have any multiphonetical songs, multiphonical songs, or microtonal songs? I'm trying to think of any microtonal solo pieces that I played. There are some, but I'd have to get through a little bit more. I'd have to look up some stuff. Best tuba mouthpiece for DCI, couldn't tell you. there's Bordoni number 1. Yeah, I should have played Bordoni 1. Yeah, it was number 10, I think. Let's see what number was it. 11. Yeah, I don't know if they give you specific mouthpieces or not. It was yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you what mouthpiece to play for DCI stuff. I mean, they might be specific. Oh, we got Brian Fincher on here. I don't think all the Brian Fincher, fanatics are here right now, Brian. Only because Brian asked. I don't really remember how it goes. It's been a while. For etude number 3 on tuba, what is it trying to convey? I guess that's a good question. I mean, that book is very Russian. I try to have a very Russian interpretation of that etude. I kind of think of like some Shostakovich or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. Let's see, do I have any single trigger bass trombones? No, I wish I did. I only have one bass trombone, and it has 2 valves, which is what I would suggest for anybody, getting one bass trombone. I would love to get a single valve bass trombone that just is a 9-inch bell. That would be like that's one of my, like, not dream horns, but that's one in the stable that I'd like to have. But I don't have one, unfortunately. Sorry, Brian, I don't really know the beatbox part or any of it. I've never played that piece. That's one of those pieces that Oystein should play and only Oystein should play, in my humble opinion. Tips on better overall response when starting and supporting notes. I practice a lot without an articulation, just doing air attacks, because at the end of the day, your air is really what does most of the work. Your tongue just does a little bit on top of that. So I would encourage you to try some air attacks and see if you can get that going. I know I already asked everybody how the overlay looks, but Brian, what do you think of the overlay? Not that I don't value everyone else's opinion, but Brian, I'm curious of Brian's thoughts. But yeah, get in your final questions. I'm probably going to hop off here pretty soon. Cool, well, I think I'm going to get off of here. Thanks everyone for joining the stream. Let's see, if you're worried about overlay, you shouldn't be worried about. There you go. You've gotten the most political than everybody, Brian. Do I like cheese? I don't eat cheese anymore. I used to like cheese, but I don't eat it anymore. I wonder if he's alt-right. Just came back just in time for me to leave. Favorite jazz trombonist? That's pretty hard, but I'll give you a few. Elliot Mason, and Mike Dees and Marshall Gilks. Those are living ones. J.J. Johnson is great. But yeah, so I'm gonna hop off of here. Thanks for everyone for watching the stream. Seemed like we had some good numbers overall. Looks like we got to 24 at one point in time. I think that's my highest at this point. So that's pretty good. But yeah, couldn't live without cheese. It's possible to do it. But all right, well, I'll see everyone later and catch you on the next live stream.